Episode 7 of My Perfect Stranger begins with Yoon Young and Hae-jun discussing the serial killer case. Hae-jun believes he may have gotten the entire case wrong and deduces that there are more than 3 suspects here. Hae-jun admits that he doesn't have any details on Yoo Se-ab, given that he never saw him as a suspect. Yoon Young does a quick character assessment, pointing out that her uncle was closer than a stranger but too distant to be called close family. In the present, it would seem that Yoo Se-ab is mentally unstable, confined to a wheelchair, and causing issues at home, especially when he starts ripping up all of Yoon Young's books. Back to the past for now. Hae-jun wants the truth, so he speaks to Yoo Se-ab and demands answers. Specifically, who does the blue cap belong to? It turns out Yoo Se-ab headed back to the motel that night after Yoo Se-ab asked him to check on the second floor and see if Ju Young's light was switched on. This little confession seems to almost confirm that Yoo Se-ab was involved in all of this, and he used Yoo Se-ab as a shield. Yoo Se-ab decides to throw the hat away, but Mi-suk picks it out of the trash. She's at the hospital with a change of clothes for her mother. She doesn't show her the blue hat. Back home, Hae-jun admits that he actually moved into the house opposite Sunni's place on purpose. He's been observing them for the past month and knows that today is going to be a very difficult day. Given that the second murder is supposed to take place very soon. The person they need to save is no ordinary person. It would appear to be Lee Kyung-yi. Kyung-yi wants to be a big star and has plans to try and make it as Miss Korea. Sune interrupts everyone. She admits she's having trouble with her studies and asks for a math tutor. She receives a swift no. Her father promises to help her out once he gets more cash, but it's undermined completely by the fact that her brother is given cash on the sly by his mother for buying new books. On the way to school, the pair watches Kyung-yi is coerced by a bunch of guys who try to scam her. These men are notorious, as they promise girls they'll make them Miss Korea for 500,000 won. Kyung-yi is the perfect target for them, given that she comes from a poor family. Yoon Young is worried that her aunt is going to make a big mistake. Yoon Young eventually gets involved when Kyung-yi refuses to go with them, and a scuffle breaks out in the street. Yoo Se-ab shows up out of nowhere and gets involved, and the way he throws is very distinctive to Hae-jun because of the way Blue Cap threw a crate at him that night. Yoo Se-ab claims to have just been passing by when the men were apprehended and jumped in to help turn the tide of this big fight. When Detective Beck shows up, not only Yoo Se-ab but also Kyung-yi manage to slip away. Back home, Hae-jun and Yoon Young regroup, but the former ends up having a nosebleed. Yoon Young is more interested in exactly why he's trying so hard to stop the killer. After all, it may not actually stop anything. Hae-jun admits that the ground was cold and that it seemed like too frozen an area to be abandoned. At school, Yoo Se-ab can't stop thinking of Sune, but there's an awkward moment when Beom Ryung decides he's going to let him have her, but the way he says this sounds super creepy. After this chat, both Yoon Young and Hae-jun work together to try and prevent the inevitable from occurring. While Hae-jun heads to all the likely spots of the murders, Yoon Young tries, and fails, to find Yoo Se-ab. With no sign of either of them and no evidence either, the pair reconvene and decide to head off to Bong Bong Cafe on a whim. And it proves to be the correct call too. Kyung-yi is there singing and entertaining a crowd. The surprise is that Min-soo is there too. Hae-jun points out that Min-soo was arrested in our timeline off the back of Mi-suk's confession. As for Yoon Young, she notices Beom Ryung outside with Sune and decides to follow, making sure she's okay. As he takes her around the alleyway, Beom Ryung claims that he has something to show her, and that happens to be the spot by the motel. Beom Ryung wants to sleep with Sune, given that's what he deserves for putting so much time into trying to date her. Thankfully, Yoon Young shows up and manages to put a stop to this. Just before he strikes out, Yoo Se-ab shows up and begins beating the boy down. Meanwhile, Min-soo follows Kyung-yi and starts choking her out on a bridge. She fights him off and pushes him off the edge, breaking his wrist. It seems he's not going to be tying any strings anymore. Hae-jun takes Kyung-yi home and warns her not to drink too much and to keep a low profile for now. He hands her envelope worth of cash and tells her to spend it wisely. Yoon Young and Sune come to the rescue, and the sisters are reunited back home, where they have fun together. As for Hae-jun, he receives a phone call from someone. It's Beom Ryung. She's dead, Mr. Yoon. He says, and despite believing that all of this is over, it's only just beginning as the camera pans over to show a murder has taken place.